We've all been there, wondering what it truly takes for a woman to completely surrender to a man. I'm not talking about superficial tricks or manipulative techniques that work temporarily. I'm talking about something much deeper and more powerful. A genuine transformation that comes from within and completely changes how women perceive you. What I'm about to reveal is a process of inner transformation that will awaken an irresistible attraction in her in just 72 hours. This isn't just another method based on rehearsed lines or artificial behaviors. It's a path to developing such a magnetic presence that she will naturally feel the desire to approach and discover more about you. Most men make the same mistake over and over again, incessantly seeking female approval, demonstrating excessive availability and emotional dependence, which invariably weakens any possibility of building a genuine connection. You've probably noticed that the more you show interest, the more distant she seems to become. It's not a coincidence. It's the clear manifestation of a natural law of human relationships. We value what we need to conquer. The secret I'm about to share is rooted in the age-old principles of Stoicism and a deep understanding of human behavior. It's about transforming everyday adversities into opportunities for personal growth and consequently becoming naturally attractive without needing to force absolutely anything. True masculine attractiveness is rooted in the ability to maintain emotional balance and self-confidence regardless of external circumstances. When you demonstrate that your happiness and worth do not depend on her approval or anyone else's, you instantly become more interesting and valuable in the eyes of women. Think for a moment, why do men who seem less interested often receive more female attention? It's not because they are indifferent, but because they demonstrate self-worth. They don't need constant validation to feel complete. This is the first key to the 72-hour process, developing a presence that conveys intrinsic value. Over the next 3 days, you will go through a process of internal recalibration that will completely change the dynamics of your relationships. I'm not just talking about fleeting conquests, but about establishing a new pattern of interaction that will make her see you as the prize to be won, not the other way around. Let's start with the first day of this transformation. The initial focus is on self-knowledge and the conscious practice of self-mastery. When you encounter a woman who sparks your interest, your first instinct will probably be to try to impress her immediately, bombarding her with attention, compliments, and constant availability. This is exactly what you need to avoid. Instead, practice controlling your emotional reactions. When she says something provocative or makes a subtle test, and believe me, women do this constantly to assess your emotional stability, respond with serenity and elegance. Don't react impulsively. Pause, breathe, respond calmly and purposefully. Remember, every word you say should carry weight. Communicate concisely and meaningfully, eliminating any trace of need for approval. When you speak less, but with more substance, each word gains greater value. This creates an aura of mystery that naturally awakens female curiosity. On the first day, also focus on creating a slight sense of unpredictability. I'm not talking about mind games or manipulative behaviors, but about breaking predictable patterns that most men follow. If she expects you to respond immediately to her message, wait a little longer. If she's used to men revealing everything about themselves on the first date, keep some aspects of your life in reserve. This approach triggers a powerful psychological switch, the principle of scarcity. What is not readily available is perceived as more valuable. By creating a slight sense of mystery and unpredictability, you activate in her the natural desire to discover more. The first day is crucial for setting the tone for your new approach. It's when you start to demonstrate, not with words, but with actions, that you are different. You are not seeking approval. You are not desperate for attention. You have a rich and meaningful life regardless of her presence. This doesn't mean being cold or distant. On the contrary, when you are with her, be completely present. Practice active listening. Ask genuine questions that show real interest in who she is, not just her appearance. The combination of attentive presence when you are together with a certain distance when you are apart creates a magnetic contrast that few women can resist. By the end of the first day, you will have already begun to plant the seeds of a new perception. She will perceive, even if unconsciously, that she is facing a man who does not behave like the others, a man who has self-control, mystery, and a presence that intrigues. Moving on to the second day, it's time to deepen this transformation. Here the focus is on building a clear and powerful identity that emanates quiet confidence. At this stage, you should demonstrate that your life has purpose and direction regardless of any relationship. Many men make the mistake of placing a woman at the center of their lives prematurely, adapting their tastes, opinions, and even values to please. This behavior, although well-intentioned, communicates weakness and lack of authenticity. On the second day, practice quietly defending your convictions even when they diverge from hers. When a disagreement arises, instead of giving in immediately or getting into a confrontation, express your position calmly and confidently. Say something like, "I understand your point of view, and I respect your opinion. My perspective is different for these reasons." This approach demonstrates both respect and inner strength, an irresistible combination for any woman who values a real man. The second day is also the time to cultivate what I call magnetic presence. This involves full awareness of your body, your nonverbal language, and the energy you project in environments. Maintain consistent but not invasive eye contact. Speak in a lower and more controlled tone of voice, which compels others to lean in to hear you. Occupy physical space with confidence, without arrogance. Remember that non-verbal communication constitutes more than 90% of your message. The way you move, your posture, the rhythm of your breathing, all of this communicates much more about your confidence and self-worth than any words you can say. Another crucial aspect of the second day is the practice of emotional non-reactivity. When she tests your limits, and believe me, this will happen, maintain your composure. If she cancels plans at the last minute, respond calmly. "No problem, maybe next time." If she makes a provocative comment, respond with a serene smile instead of defensiveness. This ability to remain centered, regardless of external circumstances, communicates an inner strength that few people possess in today's world. In an environment where impulsive and emotional reactions are the norm, your serenity will stand out as a beacon of emotional maturity. Throughout the second day, you should also introduce elements of controlled mystery into your interactions. Reveal aspects of your personality and life story gradually, creating a narrative that she wants to continue exploring. When she asks personal questions, answer honestly but always leave something more to be discovered. For example, if she asks about your childhood, share a significant story, but end with something like, "That experience shaped much of who I am today, but there's more to that story that maybe I'll share another time." This type of communication creates open loops that maintain interest and curiosity. By the end of the second day, she will begin to realize that she is facing someone truly different. A man who not only talks about having confidence and purpose, but who demonstrates these qualities in every interaction. A man who is not desperate for approval, but who lives according to his own standards. Finally, we arrive at the third day, the moment to consolidate this transformation. This is the point where all the elements worked on in the previous days crystallize into a genuinely magnetic presence that will make her naturally surrender to your attraction. The third day is dedicated to what I call elevated authentic presence. It's when you demonstrate, subtly but powerfully, that you are a man who lives with a greater purpose, who has solid values, and who is not available to just anyone who is not on the same level of self-development. At this stage, practice what the ancient Stoics called amor fati, the love of fate, the serene acceptance of everything that happens as an opportunity for growth. When a challenge arises, instead of complaining or seeking sympathy, demonstrate a constructive attitude. "This is interesting. Let's see how I can turn this obstacle into an opportunity." This stance towards life communicates extraordinary inner strength. It shows that you are not a hostage of external circumstances, but someone who transforms adversities into advantages. For a woman, this represents emotional security, the certainty that she is facing a man who does not crumble in the face of life's inevitable challenges. On the third day, you should also practice what I call detachment with purpose. Clearly, demonstrate that, although you appreciate her presence in your life, your happiness and sense of worth do not depend on her. Continue investing in your personal goals, maintaining your commitments to friends, family, and important projects. This approach creates an irresistible paradox. The more you demonstrate that you don't need her to be happy, the more she will want to be a part of your life, not out of insecurity or emotional games, but because we are all naturally drawn to people who have a full and meaningful life, independent of relationships. A fundamental element of the third day is the practice of controlled vulnerability. After establishing a solid foundation of strength and self-confidence, you can selectively share deeper aspects of who you are. I'm not talking about dumping insecurities or traumas, but about revealing meaningful reflections that show your emotional depth. For example, share an important lesson you learned through a challenge or a personal value that guides your most important decisions. This selective vulnerability, when coming from a position of inner strength, creates a deep emotional connection that goes far beyond superficial attraction. By the end of the 72 hours, you will have established a presence that communicates intrinsic value, intriguing mystery, and inner strength. The combination of these elements creates a magnetic attraction that makes her surrender naturally, not through manipulation or artificial techniques, but because you have genuinely become the type of man that quality women desire and respect. It's important to understand that this process is not about becoming someone you are not. On the contrary, it's about removing the layers of learned behaviors that hide your true masculine essence. It's about abandoning the need for approval and the emotional dependence that have weakened your interactions in the past. Every man naturally possesses the qualities that awaken deep female attraction. The problem is that modern society often teaches us to suppress these qualities in favor of approaches that, paradoxically, diminish our natural attractiveness. This 72-hour process is, in fact, a return to authenticity. Remember that the true power of this method lies in consistency. It's not about acting for 3 days and then returning to old patterns. It's about initiating a permanent transformation that will continue to evolve over time. With each interaction, with each emotional challenge overcome, you strengthen this new identity. An important note: this method will not work with all women, and that's exactly how it should be. It will naturally attract women who value inner strength, authenticity, and personal growth. Women who primarily respond to material displays or superficial social status may not respond in the same way, and this is a positive filter for finding truly compatible relationships. Another crucial point is to understand that this process is not about manipulation or control. It's exactly the opposite. It's about freeing yourself from the need to control her reactions, focusing exclusively on your own growth and self-mastery. Paradoxically, this liberation from control is what creates the most powerful attraction. As you progress through the 72 hours, pay attention to the subtle changes in her behavior. You will begin to notice clear signs of growing interest. She will initiate more conversations, ask more questions about your life, and find reasons to be in your presence. These are not behaviors that you need to actively provoke. They arise naturally in response to your internal transformation. When you become a man who conveys inner strength, purpose, and mystery, you become an enigma she wants to decipher. In a world of predictable men desperate for female attention, your differentiated presence will deeply intrigue her. She will feel that she is facing someone truly unique, a man who does not follow the common script of modern interactions. One of the most powerful aspects of this method is that it frees you from the emotional roller coaster that many men experience in relationships with women. When your emotional stability and sense of worth do not depend on her reactions, you move through the world with an unshakable confidence that is, in itself, deeply attractive. This new way of being in the world not only transforms your romantic interactions, but all areas of your life. You begin to notice positive changes in professional relationships, friendships, and even in the way strangers respond to your presence. This happens because the energy you project is no longer tainted by the desperate need for external validation. By the end of the 72 hours, you will have initiated a transformation that will continue to generate results far beyond the scope of the specific relationship you may have in mind now. You will be establishing a new pattern of interaction with the world, a pattern based on inner strength, clear purpose, and magnetic authenticity. The man who truly masters this art does not think in terms of techniques to attract women. He simply lives aligned with his inner truth, pursues his goals with quiet determination, and allows genuine connections to form naturally with people who resonate with his values and energy. When you reach the end of the third day, you will not only be more attractive in her eyes, you will be more connected with yourself, more confident in your intrinsic worth, and more capable of navigating emotional challenges with serenity and wisdom. This is the true achievement that this method offers. Not just the ability to attract a specific woman, but to become a man who naturally attracts quality people into his life, because you yourself have become a person of exceptional quality. Remember that every small decision during these 72 hours matters. Every time you choose not to react impulsively, every time you keep your commitments to yourself, every time you demonstrate value without seeking approval, you are building a new identity, brick by brick, moment by moment. The fundamental secret that few men understand is that true seduction happens not through what you do, but through who you are. When you transform your inner essence, your external actions flow naturally from a place of abundance instead of scarcity, of strength instead of insecurity, of authenticity instead of manipulation. During these 72 hours, you will essentially be recalibrating your nervous system to operate from a position of security and confidence instead of fear and need. This neurological shift fundamentally alters how you present yourself to the world, and consequently, how the world, especially the female universe, responds to you. A little discussed aspect of this process is what I call the mirror effect. As you demonstrate self-control, purpose, and authenticity, you naturally inspire these same qualities in her. You set a new standard for the interaction, raising the level of connection. Instead of falling into common emotional games, you create space for a genuinely adult and meaningful connection. It is important to understand that the 72-hour time frame is not arbitrary. Studies on habit formation and interpersonal perception show that this is approximately the period needed to establish a new pattern of behavior that is perceived as genuine and consistent. It is enough time to demonstrate that your change is not just a passing phase or a temporary technique, but an authentic transformation. In traditional relationships, many men follow the same predictable pattern. They demonstrate excessive interest, initially put the woman on a pedestal, reveal all their cards at once and gradually lose the mystery, and consequently her interest. This method completely reverses this dynamic, creating a progression of increasing interest instead of decreasing. By the end of the 72 hours, you will notice that the energy between you has changed significantly. Where before there may have been indifference or moderate interest on her part, now there is genuine curiosity, respect, and attraction. This change does not happen because you followed an artificial script of behaviors, but because you genuinely transformed into a more authentic and powerful version of yourself. Stoicism teaches that the only thing we truly control in life are our own choices and responses. We cannot control the actions or feelings of others. When you deeply internalize this truth and focus exclusively on your own development and self-mastery, you free yourself from the emotional prison that holds so many men captive in unbalanced relationships. During these 72 hours, you will learn to practice what Stoic philosophers called virtuous indifference, not in the sense of emotional coldness, but of equanimity in the face of the inevitable ups and downs of human interactions. This emotional stability communicates an inner strength that very few men possess in today's world. As you incorporate each element of this method into your daily life, you begin to notice subtle but profound changes in the way people respond to your presence. Not just her, but everyone around you will begin to treat you with a new level of respect and consideration. This transformation is not about becoming someone cold or insensitive. On the contrary, it's about developing the ability to feel emotions deeply without being controlled by them. It's about cultivating the inner strength that allows for true vulnerability, not the false openness that comes from insecurity and the need for validation. By the end of the 72 hours, you will have laid the foundation for a new way of existing in the world, a way characterized by quiet self-confidence, clear purpose, and the ability to form genuine connections based on strength and authenticity, not on neediness and manipulation. Remember that this process is not a destination. but the beginning of a continuous journey of self-mastery and personal growth. Every interaction, every challenge, every moment of temptation to return to old patterns all become opportunities to strengthen this new identity. The beauty of this method is that, as you become stronger and more centered, you naturally attract people who respond to that energy. You stop chasing and start attracting. You stop convincing and start inspiring. You stop asking for attention and start commanding it naturally through your presence. By incorporating these principles into your life, you will not only transform the dynamic with her in just 72 hours, but establish a new standard for all your future relationships. You will become the type of man who doesn't need to chase, because his very presence is magnetically attractive. And so, at the end of this 3-day process, you will not only have won her attention and interest, you will have won something much more valuable: mastery over yourself. And it is this self-mastery that ultimately makes a man truly irresistible. True achievement is never about external techniques or strategies, but about the internal transformation that makes everything else flow naturally. When you become the man who knows exactly who he is, what he wants, and who doesn't need anyone's validation to feel complete, you become a magnetic force that few can resist. So now it's up to you. The next 72 hours can be just another 3 ordinary days in your life, or they can be the beginning of a transformation that will fundamentally alter how you relate to the world and how the world relates to you. The choice, as always, is entirely yours. A fascinating aspect of this 72-hour journey is how it activates what psychologists call attraction to competence. When you demonstrate mastery over your own emotions and responses, you subconsciously communicate an ability to face challenges with elegance and efficiency. This emotional competence is extremely attractive to women seeking a partner capable of safely navigating the complexities of life. During this process, you will notice that your non-verbal communication will convey signals of confidence that you may never have exhibited before. Your posture will naturally become straighter, your movements more deliberate, your tone of voice more resonant. These changes happen organically when your inner mindset transforms and are immediately perceived by the refined social radar that women typically possess. There is a phenomenon known as the congruence test that every woman instinctively applies to the men she meets. She observes whether your words, actions, and energy are aligned, or if there is inconsistency. When you go through this 72-hour transformation, you naturally eliminate the incongruities that previously undermined your attractiveness. Your verbal and non-verbal communication finally align, creating a cohesive and magnetic presence. Another powerful element that emerges during this process is what I call the paradox of attractive detachment. The less you chase, the more she approaches. This is not manipulation. It is simply the natural result of you becoming complete in yourself. When you do not depend on her presence to feel fulfilled, you become infinitely more attractive than the man who demonstrates with every word and gesture that he desperately needs female approval. You will also discover that this method creates a dynamic of progressive curiosity. Instead of revealing everything about you at once, as most men do, desperate to impress, you become a book she wants to continue reading, a mystery that gradually unfolds. This sustained curiosity is one of the most powerful elements of lasting attraction. Female psychology responds deeply to men who maintain a balance between emotional accessibility and personal autonomy. When you implement this method, you create exactly this balance, demonstrating the ability for genuine connection without sacrificing your emotional independence. This combination is extraordinarily rare in today's world and therefore extraordinarily valuable. Another important dimension of this process is the development of what ancient philosophers called aristocratic presence, not in the sense of arrogance or elitism, but of a natural dignity that emanates from someone who knows their worth and purpose. This quality is noticeable even before you say a word, and immediately establishes an impression of exceptionality. During these 72 hours, you will learn to cultivate what I call a strategic void in your interactions. At certain moments, you will deliberately create spaces of silence that she will feel compelled to fill. This dynamic subtly reverses the game of pursuit, making her invest more energy in the interaction. Again, this is not manipulation. It is simply the intelligent application of fundamental psychological principles. An important observation about this method is that it not only transforms how she responds to you, but also how you perceive yourself. As you practice these self-mastery skills, you develop confidence based on real experience, not on empty affirmations or superficial techniques. This change in your self-image is as important as any change in her perception. At the end of these 72 hours, you will have initiated a virtuous cycle where your internal confidence generates positive external results, which in turn further reinforce your internal confidence. This positive feedback loop will continue far beyond the initial 3-day period, creating an upward spiral of personal growth and relational success. One of the most powerful elements of this method is the way it naturally filters the people who enter your life. By establishing a high standard of interaction based on mutual respect and intrinsic value, you naturally ward off those who seek superficial or manipulative relationships and attract those who are prepared for genuine and meaningful connections. A fundamental transformation that occurs during this process is the shift from a scarcity mindset to an abundance mindset. You stop seeing each female interaction as a rare opportunity that cannot be missed and begin to recognize that there are countless possibilities for meaningful connection in the world. This abundance perspective eliminates the desperation and anxiety that normally sabotage male interactions. As you progress on this path, you will notice that your intuition about people becomes significantly sharper. Without the fog of need for approval clouding your judgment, you can perceive much more clearly who is genuinely interested in you and who is just seeking attention or validation. This clarity of perception is invaluable for building healthy and balanced relationships. A fascinating phenomenon you will experience is what psychologists call value transfer. When you consistently demonstrate that you value yourself at a high level through your actions, not just words, the people around you, especially women you want to attract, naturally begin to associate this high value with you. You effectively teach others how they should treat you through the example of how you treat yourself. During this 72-hour process, you will also discover a new relationship with your emotions. Instead of being dominated by them or trying to suppress them, you will learn to observe them with curiosity and acceptance without allowing them to dictate your actions. This refined emotional intelligence is perceptible to others and conveys a rare maturity that naturally awakens respect and admiration. It is important to understand that this method is not about becoming immune to feelings or adopting a cynical stance towards relationships. On the contrary, it is about developing the inner strength that allows for authentic vulnerability, the ability to genuinely open up without fear of rejection, because your worth does not depend on external acceptance. By the end of the 72 hours, you will have laid the foundation for what psychologists call internal security, a psychological state where you do not depend on constant validation to maintain your sense of worth. This internal security is the foundation upon which all truly healthy and satisfying relationships are built. The beauty of this method is that it does not require you to memorize lines or adopt behaviors that are not naturally yours. Instead, it accesses and amplifies the qualities you already possess, but which may have been suppressed by years of social conditioning and media that often promote a distorted view of masculinity and relationships. As you implement these practices, you will notice that you naturally become more selective with your time and energy. You stop chasing approval indiscriminately and begin to invest only in connections that genuinely enrich your life. This selectivity, paradoxically, further increases your attractiveness. A crucial element of this method is what I call detachment from the outcome. When you are excessively focused on a specific outcome, whether it's winning over a particular woman or getting a specific response, you convey anxiety and neediness. By practicing detachment, focusing only on your personal growth and self-mastery, you free yourself from this pressure and, paradoxically, significantly increase your chances of success. This transformation also profoundly affects how you deal with challenges and obstacles in relationships. Instead of reacting with despair or aggression when things don't go as expected, you develop the ability to respond with emotional intelligence and adaptability. This resilience is extremely attractive and communicates an inner strength that few men possess. One of the most revolutionary aspects of this method is how it completely transforms the power dynamics in relationships. Instead of the traditional chase dance where the man pursues and the woman evaluates, you establish a dynamic of mutual discovery and appreciation. This more balanced and mature approach creates the conditions for genuinely deep and satisfying connections. By the end of the 72 hours, you will have learned not only to attract, but to inspire. There is a fundamental difference between attracting someone with techniques and inspiring genuine interest through your authenticity and inner strength. The first approach may work temporarily, but invariably dissipates over time. The second creates a foundation for lasting and meaningful connections. The transformation you will experience is not just about romantic relationships, but about how you relate to all aspects of life. The same centered and confident presence that attracts quality women also inspires respect in the professional environment, strengthens friendships, and dramatically improves your ability to navigate the complexities of modern existence. Prepare yourself for a journey that goes far beyond simply winning her over in 72 hours. Prepare yourself for a transformation that will fundamentally alter how you see yourself, how you present yourself to the world, and how the world responds to your presence. This is a journey of self-mastery and discovery that will continue to generate transformative results far beyond the initial scope of these 3 days.